Hey everybody, Dan here with Pain-Free You. Today I wanted to talk about this concept, and it's all about fear because it's really the name of the game here. Why you can't panic your way out of mind-body symptoms. So get to that. Slow your breath, slow your thinking, relax your body. It's a message of safety. Seems very subtle, but it is. A relaxed body is much different than a tight, cowering, protective body as far as teaching the brain we're okay. So, why you cannot panic your way out of mind-body symptoms? Well, let's go back to square one. What causes symptoms in the first place? It's the brain's perception of danger. It's a hypervigilant brain, always looking out for danger, and anything that could be going wrong that could be a threat to us. And so if it perceives a threat, it's going to beep, beep, turn on a symptom. So many people, by default, they end up in a state of panic. Maybe they've got health anxiety from a bunch of different health issues in the past. Maybe their parents were very health anxious, or they experienced something with an aunt, uncle, parent. Somebody got very sick and you had to watch that growing up or as a younger adult. And it really sensitizes us to areas surrounding our health and our well-being. And so it's very easy to see how many people, and it's a big majority of people, there's probably 25 to 30% of the U.S. population alone that has some type of mind-body condition. So if you're feeling some kind of special kind of broken, this is much more common than you realize. Now, maybe in your circle of friends and family, they don't get it because they don't experience it, but maybe they've got something going on and they just don't realize that their brain is creating symptoms. They might think, well, I've got this going on or I've got that going on, and oh, you're a little wacky because you believe your brain's doing it, right? And I get how there's a lack of acceptance generally in the population over these things. And that can cause us to say, am I nuts? Am I crazy? What's wrong with me and my brain for doing this, for creating this? Nothing. It's so much more common than you realize. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not mentally ill. Your symptoms are very real. They are just not created by a flaw or illness in the body. They are created by a brain on high alert, turning on the alarms when it perceives something dangerous or threatening is occurring. So with that foundation laid, obviously we want to go ahead and make sure that that's what's going on for you, because symptoms that are created by the brain behave much differently than a physical body flaw or illness. So go to painfreeyou.com and download the assessment, right? Answer the questions for any symptom that you have a question about, that you're in doubt about, and get your answer. And then after that, per chapter 7 of my book, the big decision, I'm going to really encourage you to make a decision to accept that if the assessment says it's a mind-body condition, TMS, perceived danger, then accept that, because that really is the foundation. Understanding what causes symptoms and does this apply to me? Okay, great. Now you can begin to move forward. So let's look at our response. If your default response is panic and freak out, I can assure you that is not the way to teach this overprotective, scared brain that you're okay. Because if you're in a full-blown panic, is that fueling the safety? Or is that really fueling and keeping the brain perceiving danger? So panic is very counterproductive. Freaking out. I did a video a long time ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Nobody ever got better by freaking out. And let me restate that. I've never met somebody who was so scared, poof, their symptoms disappeared. I've never met somebody so angry at their symptoms, so frustrated, so full of despair that they'll never get better, that poof, symptoms went away. Danger is the cause, safety is the solution, and there's a number of ways of conveying safety, but ask yourself, is the way I'm thinking, acting, behaving, speaking, conveying that I'm okay? Or am I fueling the brain's current fear and perception of danger? right? When I feel the symptoms, am I in a panic, or am I more able to calmly respond and reassure myself? Right? And I get it. If you're new in the journey, panic is the default reaction. There's trouble. Something bad is happening because I feel awful, whether it be pain, gastric distress, reflux, TMJ, migraines, you name it. When symptoms are up, we feel awful, and they're very compelling. They're very convincing to say something's wrong. Yep. And so that's why we have this foundation laid of what's causing symptoms in the first place, and then does that apply to me? And then please, once you know that, accept it. Some people say, I don't know how to make the decision that what I have is a mind-body condition. Fine, you don't have to make the decision. Let the information about what causes symptoms and let the assessment, which is put together, these questions in the assessment have been formulated by the best minds in mind-body science for decades, starting with Sarno, his proteges, Schubner, Schechter, all the doctors that work together, Clark, Hanscom, Strax, many of the folks that work at the ATNS, Association for Treatment of Neuroplastic Symptoms. That's at symptomatic.me. And so the best minds have formulated these ways of giving you the opportunity to assess your own symptoms and determine, how are my symptoms behaving, and does this mind-body stuff apply to me? Right? And that's the best way that I know that you can determine what's causing your symptoms. But if the assessments that are put together by the best minds in this mind-body space, if the assessment says it's a mind-body thing, I'm going to really encourage you to say, I'm going to trust the experts. And I'm not calling myself that. I'm putting it on the folks who really figured this stuff out long before I came along and started teaching it. But I'm going to trust that these assessments and the ways symptoms behave is a valid way for you to determine for yourself what's going on, and then make the decision to accept that your brain is creating symptoms based on fear, perceived danger, likely misinformation, right? So let's correct the data with the accurate information that I'm actually okay. Let's start to shift a little bit at a time our mindset, and moving from that panic and freak out to doing that less and less, and moving towards calmly reassuring ourselves, and ideally moving towards indifference. Another word for that is unbothered. So each day be a little bit less bothered, a little less panicked, a little less freaked out. You're not going to turn it off like a light switch. You're just not. But I can assure you, if your approach to symptoms has been panic, freak out, doubt, catastrophic thinking, research in the mainstream medical world, all of that is doing is creating more perceived danger based on information that may not apply to you. And so, super important. Do your best to freak out less, panic less, be less bothered, reassure more. Focus on the facts, right? Are you going to make a decision to believe your imaginary fears of some mystery ailment that's never been found by doctors? Or are you going to believe the facts based on your lived experience of how your symptoms behave and how it fits into this model of the mind-body creating symptoms? So, panic is not an effective strategy. Freak out is not an effective strategy. Getting angry and in a rage and hating your symptoms is not an effective strategy, because these things only serve to fuel the brain's perception that something bad is going on. And so, we cannot panic our way out of mind-body symptoms. We just can't. And you can try, and maybe you have tried, and if it's not working very well, let me encourage you to shift direction. Say, all right, well, that didn't work. Let me try this panic less, freak out less, be less bothered approach. Let me reassure more. Let me lean on the facts of how this stuff works and what goes on for me, because I've done the assessment. That's really the foundation, folks. From there, it becomes much more easy to teach the brain that we're okay because you're standing on a solid foundation. I'll never say this stuff is easy, but it does get easier when you have that solid foundation built and you slowly, gradually freak out and panic less and learn to reassure yourself more. Be less and less unbothered until at some point you end up in a legitimate, authentic, I really don't care about these symptoms. I just don't. When indifference is authentic, you're well on your way. And so you get the mindset right, but that's built on the foundational facts of what's going on. And once you have the facts and the mindset and you're showing up as unbothered as possible, you're going to start to notice differences. First, the mindset will shift. You may have symptoms, but you're less bothered by them. You're able to engage in life more, with more joy, more connection with others. And over time, you're going to start to say, wow, you know what? I had an hour without symptoms. Okay, perfect. Write it down. I had an hour without symptoms. Where was my mindset leading up to that and during that? Now look, whether symptoms came back or not doesn't matter. That hour or minute without symptoms is proof that you can get there. Because if the brain can do an hour or a day or a week without symptoms, it can do it long term, right? I've been chronic pain-free for well over 10 years, probably 12, 13. I don't even recall the year that it was done. But if I can do it, you can do it. The brain can learn that you're okay. You're safe enough. So I'm going to wrap this one up here. I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. And subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on Facebook, on Instagram. If you haven't read the book yet, get your copy. Amazon.com or Audible.com for the audiobook. It's in Kindle, paperback, and audio. So I hope everybody's doing great. And as always, love you. And we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.